I'm Rob Kirkpatrick, and this is Kirkpatrick and Company, the podcast where we sit down with people shaping business, culture, and community across Acadiana and beyond. Today, we're joined by Lafayette Parish Assessor Justin Centanni to talk about public service, property taxes, and the work happening behind the scenes to keep our communities moving forward. This is Kirkpatrick and Company. Welcome back to Kirkpatrick and Company, and joining us inside the vault, Lafayette Parish Assessor Justin Centanni. Hello, how are you, sir?
Good afternoon, Rob. Great to be with you.
Okay, I went back in the Gmail files.
Okay.
The first time we did this interview.
At Poor?
No, way before.
Oh, you mean on KPEL?
No, the first time on the radio. It was December 11th of 2014.
Okay, so that, because I remember you were not my first interviewer on KPEL.
Okay.
This was still back in the Bernie and Nathan days.
Oh, yeah, those were some days.
And that was in, I think, August of 2014.
Yeah.
So that December of 2014, not too far after that.
Yeah, so I'm happy that you're here.
There's
a ton going on to talk about. I actually secretly, as your friend, love that you have a job that everyone thinks they know what it is. Then when they say it out loud, it's not what it is. And then whenever they hear it from you, it really isn't what it is. So the Lafayette Parish Assessor, you are there to do what at a 30,000-foot view?
So we are, I'll tell you, like just about every other assessor in the world will tell you, we are not there to collect the taxes. We are not there to decide the tax rate. We are there to identify and put a value on every piece of property in Lafayette Parish. And at the end of the year, once all the governments around the parish have decided what their tax rates are going to be, we calculate the taxes that are owed on every property in Lafayette Parish, and then we turn the tax roll over to the sheriff to go collect the taxes.
And it also sort of putting rubber to the road on where that money is going, what priorities. You're not deciding it, but you're making sure that funding is there.
Well, we're not even making sure the funding is there because every tax that we decide is owed on each piece of property is voted on by the voters. Right. And so the voters themselves have the ultimate authority on which governments collect which taxes, and taxes come up for renewals. I think we have one on the ballot this coming Saturday for the Lafayette Parish Public Library. If the voters decided that they didn't find the library valuable, it's completely within their purview to not fund the library anymore, which they did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating because I would imagine there are places like, I'm just going to pick on Nebraska, where maybe we have square plots of land that are similarly valued. And here, there are all sorts of things. There are backstories that you guys have to keep track of.
Not only that, well, I'll tell you, one of my favorite people to talk to is the Richland Parish Assessor. And Richland Parish Assessor, Richland Parish is the place where the Meta Data Center is being built.
Okay.
And so, this man is going through a tremendous amount of change in his office, in his day-to-day life, just trying to keep up with all the construction going on in Richland Parish. And the way he described it, he said, it was just him and a couple of employees in the office, and he overstates the case, but he said, basically, we've been assessing the same 100 pieces of property to the same 100 families for the last 100 years in Richland Parish. And he said, and now all of a sudden this year, I've had 50 mobile home parks open.
Really?
And so, there's a tremendous amount of change on an annual basis in Lafayette Parish, and we're very blessed because of that, because we had 2,000 new houses last year. We had 300 or 400 new businesses last year. We're getting a Buc-ee's built, a Trader Joe's built. There's a lot of differences that we need to account for in our day-to-day and year-to-year life at the assessor's office.
So when you stepped into the role, you obviously had a unique background, public service really being, I think, what people knew your name from as your time on the school board. What originally even brought you to that? What was your first kind of brush with public service?
So my dad was on the city council in Thibodaux many, many moons ago. And I can still remember going around door to door with him. I was probably 12 or 13 years old at the time. And that was really my first brush. But, me personally, I never really imagined being in public office, running for anything or public service. I was always involved and engaged in my community, but I never really, thought that it was anything for me. And really the thing that kind of tipped the scales was my children were young. They were going into public school, and the school board had issues, and most of them were budgetary in nature. And, it was the kind of thing of I'm never one to complain for too long without offering a solution, and everybody just seemed to want to complain about it. And I was like, well, I know about budgets.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, this is a place where I think I can contribute, and if nobody else is willing to step up, I mean, I'll be happy to do it and make sure that my children and all my neighbors' children have quality educations.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because I think people would think the logical step was, oh, if the school board's for me, I must be a teacher, or I must work at a school.
Oh, and I heard that a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
but the numbers are really important. The school system is the largest single employer in the parish, correct?
Correct.
I mean, that costs money.
You want to talk about what the school system is the largest, and in a lot of parishes, this is the case. Just about any parish, the public school system is going to be the largest employer. But here in Lafayette Parish, it's the largest employer. It has the largest healthcare plan in the parish. It has the largest transportation system in the parish that costs about $20 million a year to operate. It certainly has the largest construction program in the parish. And so none of those things that I just listed has anything to do with education, you know? And so, yeah, I think most people's first response is, or are you a teacher, or, you know, how are you affiliated with the school system already? These are the people that we think about when people run for school board. But, you know, the fact of the matter is it's really about how do you manage a large organization effectively and efficiently in a lot of cases.
So let's fast forward to now. Obviously, you know, people have a certain opinion even when you say the word taxes. It doesn't matter if we're saying income taxes, if we're saying payroll taxes, or property taxes.
Generally not a positive opinion either.
Well, it's the same bucket to a lot of people.
That's right.
What are some things that maybe you didn't realize questions-wise that would come in? You know, obviously from before, you did a ton of work with the former assessor. You had about a year of an overlap.
That's right.
Where you got to hear at everything you went to, when are you taking office? Because it was a big.
Well, it was a nice year because I got to blame everything on Conrad Como.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so people would complain about it because they did think I was the assessor already. I'm like, no, that's still Conrad. I was like, I only have this 1 year where I can say that. Next year, it's going to be all my fault.
Yeah.
You know, no, it's an interesting, you know, going back to what I said at the beginning, right? Like, I don't decide what the tax rate is. I don't collect the taxes. And in a lot of ways, I don't even really decide what the value is, right? Because we're just going and seeing what properties near your house sold for. And the state law says we have to put a market value on it. So in a lot of ways, we're just the bearer of bad news.
Yeah.
In a lot of people's minds, right?
Yeah.
If they were selling their house, we'd be the bearer of good news because we'd say, well, congratulations, your house is worth a lot more than you paid for it. Yeah. But I think the surprising thing is, despite all of those things, they do still look at me as the person who raises or lowers their taxes. And you know, that's unfortunate, but I guess it is easier to convince me to lower the value than it is to convince 5 city council members to lower the tax rate.
Yeah.
Right.
I do think it's interesting too. It isn't just you, you know, here in Lafayette Parish, it's not even just you and a couple people. There is a ton of research. There is a staff that does these sorts of things because things do change, whether there's new development in an area. We also had I can't believe it's been 10 years ago now. We had a big flood that happened where the landscape changed in certain areas forever. Kind of how do you lead that group? Because they're really setting what could be used as reference for generations.
Well, so we do a lot of different things, right? So there was a neighborhood off of Vero School Road that flooded in April of last year. And my predecessor did this in 2016 on a much larger scale. But we went ahead and gave a 1 year reduction in property values to those houses that had flooding because, I mean, look, the law says we have to put a market value on it, and the houses in that condition have a reduced market value.
If you had to sell it today and get out.
Sell it today and get out, you would have to sell it for much less than we have it assessed for. So I have no problem with lowering it that 1 year while they make their repairs. And then the next year we come out and we take a look and we put it back to where it ought to be, because now the market value is where it was before, right? And so we do a lot of things like that where we try to, I mean, you know, the reduction that these people got wasn't more than $700 or $800 or something like that in taxes, but it helps. I mean, every little bit helps when you're going through a situation like that, for sure. But it's also consistent with, if I tell you I have to put a market value on a property, and you come and tell me, well, you got the wrong market value, and you show me the right market value, well, I mean, I have to put it at that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I think about it anyway. And so it's all about consistency, I think, is the the lesson I've learned thus far in the job is when we say, let's talk about market value and you think I'm wrong, well, show me what market value is with evidence, right? Not just, well, I think it's high, but show me why it's high and where I'm wrong. And I have no problem whatsoever making changes and making adjustments.
Lafayette Parish Assessor Justin Centanni is inside the vault. We're at Rock and Bull in downtown Lafayette. And look, at the core of everything, numbers, yes. Property value, yes. Making sure tax money that's collected is going to those priorities and those initiatives that matter. But at the core is technology. And this has been one of your biggest missions because the assessor's office is a place where new technologies are helping, whether it's mapping. I'm not going to freak out the people and say AI is being used to do this sorts of thing. We're not going to start that.
It's not doing that.
It's not doing that.
It's not doing that.
But as far as mapping and how you can keep track of these things, tell me about some of the cool technology. Like, what's your favorite thing right now?
So our favorite thing is we use our main software system that we use in the office. It's called a computer-assisted mass appraisal system. And really, what we do is not go to each individual house and appraise each individual house. We take large groups of similar properties and we kind of put a price per square foot on that group of properties and then calculate the value based off of that price per square foot. And so we're doing an upgrade of our main software system now, which is going to go from a system that was first implemented in 2009 to a cloud-based system now that we'll be able to use. But what it's going to really do is it's going to make more data available to the end users. One of the surprising things that I've learned about the job is the sheer volume of traffic on our mapping site on a daily basis.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
oh, yes.
It's the one thing that people tell me. They're like, I love your website.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on it every day. I'll tell you a funny story. So I was having a small procedure at Lafayette General, and I was the first person in the operating room that morning. And I'm wheeled in, and they hadn't quite given me the anesthesia yet. And all the nurses were there, and they had just come on shift. And they were talking about one of the nurses had met a young guy that weekend, and they're all in their mid to early 20s. Mm-hmm. And they're talking like girls do about after they just met a guy, and they're like, "Well, how are you going to find out about him? And where's he live? And what's his job? And all this other stuff." And one of the girls says, and remember, I'm sitting there laying on the operating table, yes. And they said, "Well, I'll tell you what you need to do. Don't mess with Facebook or anything. You got to go to the tax assessor's website."
That's right.
And I'm just laying there listening to this conversation, and I couldn't help myself. And I said, "Y'all want to hear something really funny?" And they were, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, I'm the tax assessor."
So good.
And they freaked out, and they initially said, "There's no way," until one of them held their phone next to my head on the website, and they were like, "Y'all, it's really,
there you are.
It's really him."
I'm glad you're admitting it, because as you were saying it, I was thinking all that traffic is because people are nosy.
That's exactly right.
I just recently had to help my mother-in-law. She got a new iPhone. So I was, adding all the things. Well, so she had to tell me her bookmarks. And the bookmarks was every funeral home, because she had to check the obituary. She read it like the newspaper. And I guarantee when a house sells on the street, she's checking to see who they are. Do you know them? And I'm sure an LLC that buys a house probably just infuriates. Because
I haven't met somebody yet who was excited about an LLC buying a house.
Correct. But all that information is there, and it is public for a reason. All
That's
of
right.
it is there, and it is really easy to use. People go to it, and even just to sometimes see how, you might even see a house that's for sale and you see a sale price. Well, maybe I just want to go look and see what the history is on that.
That's right.
And that's all part of it.
That's all part of it. And so, going back to the school board, and I was making the case that, maybe being a teacher isn't the end all be all of who you need on the school board. You do need some other people with other experiences in both life and business. But I think kind of the same thing applies to the assessor's office. I mean, I had no career in real estate to speak of, right? And it's not that I'm ignorant of real estate markets, but I certainly had no formal training in that. But my bachelor's degree is in computer information systems, and I have a minor in math. And so it feels sometimes like I'm specializing in, okay, how do we rethink how these public offices work so that we can get them to work in a more efficient manner and be a little more forward thinking, a little more open and transparent, and try to deliver our services to the public that way.
And it's not like Lafayette was behind in anything, but This is just an office where it was run out of filing cabinets. for how many decades?
So
I
my,
mean, that's
so
just how
my
it was.
predecessor, Conrad Como, was the first assessor in the state to put all of his parcels on a GIS map online.
Yeah.
And so, I think I'm proud to carry on that tradition of innovation within the Lafayette Parish Assessor's Office. Now everybody in the state, I was last night with my wife, we were addressing graduation announcements for our daughter. And of course, my website is excellent for that as well.
Yes.
But also, not everybody lives in Lafayette Parish. I had no trouble going to the Avoyelles Parish website and getting some of my wife's aunts and uncles and their addresses, right? So a parish as small as Avoyelles, now they also have mapping online. So every parish has all this stuff online. Conrad Como was the first, and we'll be the first to do something else innovative in the future, I'm sure.
Cool. All right. I do want to ask about that because you now are able to speak to the other 51 assessors always, right?
64.
64.
So there's 63 other assessors.
63 others. We're going to take that out. How embarrassing. How embarrassing.
You have to go back to 8th grade.
Yeah,
Rob.
yeah. So now I got to leave it. So you get to talk to the other parish assessors on a regular basis. There are open lines of communication. And, there's an issue we have, and we will talk deeper about the elections coming up, but there's an issue with inventory tax that's going to be on the ballot, and every parish will get to vote on whether or not they want this. Am I understanding that correctly?
So first step is a statewide constitutional amendment on May 16th.
Okay.
If the state approves, a simple majority of the state voters says yes to amendment number 4, then the decision will go to the parish governing authority, which in Lafayette Parish is the parish council. In some parishes, it's the police jury.
Okay.
The sheriff and the school board in every parish have to get together and decide, do we want to completely get rid of or completely exempt business inventory from ad valorem taxation? Do we want to reduce the taxes on business inventory? Currently, business inventory like commercial real estate is taxed at 15% of its market value. They could set that anywhere from 0 to 15, right? So you could reduce it, you could completely exempt it, you could exempt it, phase it out over a number of years. There's a number of different ways that the parish council, the school board, and the sheriff could go with this, but this all plays out in every parish, and the 3 bodies must be unanimous in it. If one of them says no.
So let's just say hypothetically it passes this election that happens right there, that at least the state constitution will be changed.
That's right. It is now up to the parishes.
It's now for the
today. It's up to no one.
But the parishes don't have to be unanimous, right? Now the parishes, you could get rid of it here, and St. Martin Parish could keep it.
So there are about 10 parishes in the state. Well, let's go the other way. There are about 45 parishes in the state where it's a no-brainer. They don't collect any significant revenue off of business inventory taxes, so they will, because the state is going to give you a one-time stipend as a parish as an incentive to get rid of it, right? And so
because it's good for the state as far as luring businesses to do.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
It's good for everybody, right? This is an objectively good policy, not taxing business inventory. But we are, unfortunately, and it's in the Constitution, so we have to change the Constitution. And then because we are taxing business inventory, there are teachers who get paid from this revenue, and sheriff's deputies who get paid from this revenue, and drainage projects that happen from this revenue. And so, it's not as simple as just flipping a switch and saying it's gone.
Yeah.
Because, while our tax roll will grow over the next 4 to 5 years and backfill that revenue, we got to get to the 4 to 5 years without a decline in public safety or, decline in number of teachers in the schools.
So is that a number or a percentage that we can talk about?
10%.
How much the budget? Okay, so that's 10% of the parish budget.
10% of the parish tax roll is business inventory. So when you're talking about the parish-wide taxing bodies, and that changes a little bit depending on municipalities, but parish-wide, so school board, sheriff, and parish council, assessor, LEDA, Lafayette Parish Library, 10% of their ad valorem tax revenues is due to business inventory. If you're talking about places like Youngsville and Dusson, it's very small. Youngsville is about, I think, 1.8%. Dusson is less than that. Karen Crow is at almost 12% because of the Amazon warehouse.
Gotcha.
And so, and then when you're thinking about it further, you need to think about what percentage of their budget is ad valorem taxes, right? So let's take the assessor's office. So we are funded completely from an ad valorem tax. So we would take a full 10% cut to our budget. school board, ad valorem tax revenue makes up about 26% of their budget.
So an even bigger chunk.
No, a much smaller chunk. Mine was 100%. Theirs is 26, right?
Oh, okay.
So I'm taking a 10% cut, but they're only taking a 10% cut of 26%. So they're only taking a little bit less than a 3% cut to their budget. Right?
Okay.
So the more you have sales tax revenue to rely on to make up for some of that, the more easy it becomes for you to actually get rid of the inventory tax. But everybody's got to go through this whole calculation. So that's the 45, right? We talked about 45. It's a no-brainer. There's 10 parishes where they can't even consider it. So we're talking about mainly your St. John, St. James, St. Charles, Ascension, where they have these plants along the river.
And all because it's not just consumer inventory like how you mentioned Amazon. It's the stuff that's sitting on the property, and that could be equipment that even if it's not being used, if it's sitting there, it's part of it,
not
right?
the equipment. The equipment's not inventory. We're talking about like your feedstock.
That's
and that's there. That goes into making chemicals, like all of that, right?
Wow.
So the Amazon warehouse in Port Allen, West Baton Rouge Parish, that's 30% of their tax roll.
Wow.
So those parishes right there, you're talking up to a third of their tax roll comes from business inventory. And there is no feasible way in a short timeline without increasing taxes somewhere else, right? Like, I mean, it would take a really long time to wean yourself off of 30%. So they can't even consider it. Fortunately, Lafayette Parish, unfortunately, we're not in the 45.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's a no-brainer. But we are in the 10 that we can do it if we work at it.
Okay. Wow. I think, I mean, in talking to some of these other assessors, is it a real worry that maybe your next door neighbor parish gets rid of it and you have to keep it, that a business could just have a U-Haul truck and move across the parish line?
So I've made this point on several occasions. Let's say that in Lafayette Parish, our sheriff, school board, and parish council don't agree to get rid of it, right? But St. Martin Parish does. Well, I mean, that's a really big incentive to build a warehouse in St. Martin Parish, is it not?
Yeah.
And so the point is, you can vote to keep it, the inventory tax, if you want. If you're on the parish council or on the school board, you're going to lose it anyway, because one of these other parishes is going to exempt business inventory, and that's where the inventory is going to move.
And I mean,
so you might as well go ahead and bite the bullet and do what's best for the long-term economic outlook of Lafayette Parish.
I mean, look, the marketing guy in me can already hear the marketing campaigns. Come to our parish. It's going to happen.
Right?
Wow. Okay. We're going to take another quick break. I do want to talk about more about some of these constitutional amendments that are on the ballot. There's a lot of people who are just like, no to them all.
Yep.
That's just how people go. But we'll break down a few of them. We're with Justin Centanni. He's Lafayette Parish Assessor, and he continues with us here on Kirkpatrick and Company.
Kirkpatrick and Company is brought to you by Catalyst Bank. When you think about banking, you want more than just transactions. You want trusted relationships, and that's what you'll find at Catalyst Bank. For more than 100 years, Catalyst Bank has served Louisiana communities with a commitment to personal service, local decision-making, and helping businesses and families grow with confidence. Whether you're opening your first account, financing a business expansion, or planning for the future, Catalyst Bank is built around people who know this community because they live here too. Modern banking, local leadership, and real relationships. Learn more at catalystbank.com.
Welcome back to Kirkpatrick and Company. All right, so we are in the midst of election season. If you have turned on the radio or the TV or watched anything on the internet, you know that things are going on. We have a Senate race going on. There are also these amendments, constitutional amendments. There are 5 of them on the May 16th ballot. I love PAR. They do a breakdown. I literally have open right now a 1-page breakdown of these amendments. So if you are, we'll put a link to it in the description here, but if you are just looking for a basic, here's what this one says. They usually don't encourage or discourage any of them. Just here's what it says. So Amendment 1, job creation outside the civil service system. PAR says it allows lawmakers to remove state government job from the civil service system and its protections without needing approval from the Civil Service Commission. So that is Amendment 1. Amendment 2, new public school district in East Baton Rouge Parish. Authorize the creation of the St. George Community School System in East Baton Rouge Parish. Is it funny that everyone's voting on this and seems very specific to
the creation of the creation of a public school system in the state of Louisiana has to be a statewide vote? I think is the poster child for why we need a constitutional convention. Because every single person, I mean, even when I was 18 years old and going and voting on this, I can remember when the Baker School District was created and Zachary School District in East Baton Rouge.
Because those were also pulled out of Baton Rouge as well.
They were,
right?
and they were also a statewide vote. And so, it has to pass in the district, with 50% in the district, and it has to pass 50% statewide for these poor people in St. George to get a school district. Now, just to say how stupid this is, right, is St. George is a brand new city. Do you know why St. George exists?
Give me the background.
They wanted a school system in the St. George area of unincorporated East Baton Rouge Parish. And they went to the legislature to say, we would like a school system. And the legislature told them, and I think they were kind of, trying to give them the delay tactic a little bit. And the legislature told them, well, we don't do that for just unincorporated areas of a parish. Every other school system that exists outside their parish school system is a city school system. So you need to create a city, right? And now that's a really big city that they were trying to create, right? Like out of whole cloth, we have a city with 85,000 people in it, right? But this was all the way back in like 2013 or 14. And so it took them 6 years, but they got their city created. And then it took another 5 years of litigation over that city with East Baton Rouge Parish. And finally, they got to the point last year where they were able to file a bill to get a school system, which is what they wanted. It's the only thing they wanted from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And so I look at this right here and I say, these poor people have been through enough. Give them their school system. They clearly want it. Like, I can't think of a school district that exists outside of its parish school system that is going to be more bought in than the St. George.
From everyone there.
From the St. George, because every single person there voted for their city to create that city to get a school system.
Well, and look, you already have a field trip. You have Blue Bayou.
That's right.
It's built in. It's built in. Okay, let's move on. Amendment 3, trust funds eliminated for retirement pay and teacher pay. So this dissolves 3 education trust funds to use the money to pay down retirement debt and give public school teachers and support workers a permanent raise. This one seems like a kind of a no-brainer as well.
Well, so it is. From my point of view, I'll say this one in number 4, which is the inventory tax that we just talked about. These were the 2 big pieces of what was amendment number 2 that failed last April. Okay. And the feedback I heard from a lot of people was it was too complicated. It was too many things in one amendment. It was in fairness, it was a wholesale rewrite of Article 7 of the Constitution. But this one and what turns out to be amendment number 4 this year were the 2 big pieces of it. What this does, and I'll use it as an example, Lafayette Parish Public Schools currently pay right about 24% of their total payroll costs to the teacher retirement system of Louisiana solely to retire legacy debt. Okay, that is not going to current benefits, cost of living adjustments, future benefits. It is all going to the sins of the past. Right? What this will do is this will take about $2 billion that is sitting in education trust funds and liquidate the trust funds and use the $2 billion to pay off the retirement debt. As a result, the Lafayette Parish school system might go down to paying something like 16% of their total payroll cost to this legacy debt. So that extra 8% will go directly to teachers in the form of a permanent salary increase.
Interesting. So I've heard this described, and this really is across state government, but that money exists, but we have a lot of money in boxes. How it can be spent and where. This one, it seems to just kind of take a piñata bat to the box and let it be spent directly.
That's right.
Okay. That's Amendment 4. And then that's Amendment 3. Amendment 4 is what we talked about before, and that has to do with the property tax on business inventory.
Yeah.
Huge deal. I think about some of the bigger businesses that we have in Lafayette Parish. We have a lot. I mean, we have Amazon too, right here in Karen.
Right.
A bunch of different areas. In my mind, I also think of, up and down Highway 90, which you have a ton of businesses that have things, warehouses, oil and gas. Could be a big change maker here.
Look at it this way, right? So I said 10% of the tax roll is $28 million every year that would be put back into the pockets of business owners, large and small, right? Amazon will get a big tax break if we exempt business inventory, but so will the lady in Youngsville who bakes cakes. You know, I mean, everybody's going to get that break in their taxes that'll help them hire more help, expand their business, or even just like take their family out to eat one extra time during the year. You know, like whatever the case may be, you know, the money undoubtedly will be put back into circulation in Lafayette Parish, further growing our economy and making it a better place.
I just think it's interesting, and it's why I like what PAR does, because we really do literally just have a sentence: allow local governments to lessen or eliminate property taxes on business inventory and receive a one-time payment if they stop charging the tax. So that's sort of the off-ramp to sort of just say, now we're going to do it. Thank you for doing it. It makes our state as a whole more attractive.
We're one of here. We always.
I was going to ask.
Okay,
I mean,
one of 9 states who tax business.
The rest of them,
I don't know.
They're not around here. They're not Texas.
It's surely not Texas.
They're not Texas, and they're not Florida.
That's right.
I mean, I'm guessing.
No.
And finally,
probably not. I mean, Texas walks on water.
Yes. I always love their $1 billion infrastructure just in case fund.
Just in case.
That's how they can fix I-10, except for whatever reason, that area between like Orange and Beaumont. I don't know. It's missed out. All right. And finally, Amendment 5, as we're going through these, mandatory retirement age for judges, that would raise the mandatory retirement ages to 75 years old. Currently, it's 70 years old. So 5 more years if someone's doing the job. Of course, they can be voted out. You know, this is just the requirement that they would have to retire by then. Justin Centanni's with us, our Lafayette Parish Assessor. We have covered a lot of ground. We're going to take one more break, come back with a little bit of a lightning round before we get you out the vault.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much to our partners at Catalyst Bank, because community isn't just something they talk about. It's something they invest in every single day, and we love to talk about those investments on Kirkpatrick and Company. From supporting local businesses and nonprofits to helping families achieve financial goals, Catalyst Bank believes strong communities are built through trusted partnerships and long-term relationships. That hometown approach, combined with modern banking tools and responsive service, is why so many people and businesses across Louisiana continue to choose Catalyst Bank. If you're looking for a bank that understands where you come from and also where you're headed, discover the Catalyst difference. Visit catalystbank.com for more. Now more of our conversation with Lafayette Parish Assessor Justin Centanni.
All right. I love this lightning round. It's sort of my chance to be inside the actor's studio, but this is inside the assessor studio here. All right. Lightning round question number 1, coffee or energy drinks?
Coffee.
Number 2, favorite spot in Lafayette to unwind?
Oh, my back porch.
You know what? As soon as I asked the question, I said, his backyard is actually one of my favorite places to unwind.
That's right.
And it has nothing to do with the shelf that you have inside. Question number 3, early bird or night owl?
Both.
Oh, how?
I don't really sleep all that much.
No sleep.
No. Well, I mean, like 4 or 5 hours of sleep.
Man.
That's what I've always needed. I don't know. I'm an oddball like that.
But okay, so where does that happen? Does it happen earlier in the night, or are we like
generally from like midnight to 4 or 4:30?
Interesting. All right. Well, now I know I'm not going to worry that when I get up and texting you.
You can call me. This is a terrible thing to say out loud in public, but you can call me just about any time, and I'll answer.
All right. That's a challenge.
And not be awake and not be asleep for sure.
Number 4, what is one word your team, and we have a team member in the room, so I might ask her to verify this. What is one word your team would use to describe your leadership style?
Customer service focused.
On point.
On point.
That's Amanda Blanco, by the way, assistant assessor. Deputy assessor.
Deputy assessor.
All right. And finally, if you weren't in public service, what would Justin Centanni be doing right now?
I would be working in some tech field, writing code or managing databases or doing something technical related. But I've have the great fortune of being where I am and doing those things in the
I was going to say, if you were going to find somewhere that really needed that.
I genuinely, it's one of the most exciting jobs that I've had in my life. And I know it's weird to say that about the assessor's office. I used to joke about when I was running saying, how many people in Lafayette Parish genuinely would be excited every day to get up and go do the job of assessor. It was like maybe 5 or something like that. It's like almost by way of apology, I'd say I'm one of them.
And you know what? You're also on the receiving end. Sometimes I think of a lot of incoming fire when people open up those, assessments, but to have an explanation of here's why, and also we might get it wrong. There might be a bug. We can go look at it.
I mean, look, it's all a matter of perspective, I guess. For the average person who works a 9-to-5 job, if they got dropped into a job like this, where you deal with some angry people, and they're not, and when they're angry, they're not terribly nice, and that's okay, that's fine, it doesn't bother me. But having served 9 years on the school board, this is a tremendous improvement. And so, I got very accustomed to taking those phone calls when the bus doesn't show up in the morning. And the bus might not show up. It's not like we have a surplus of bus drivers, right?
Yeah.
And so the bus doesn't show up because the bus driver's sick. Well, I can't be mad at the bus driver. But at the same time, the bus doesn't show up. Think about 70 families who have their morning wrecked because the bus didn't show up, right? Now, the mom's late for work or the dad's late for work, and they're angry. And, it taught me a lot about how there's no great answer when the phone call rings and you're on the school board, because if it was easy, someone else would have solved it. Yeah. And this one, there's an answer. Well, and so I can live with that.
I always think about the bus situation. Like you say, maybe the mom or dad have to be late for work. Like, how many kids just don't go that day? That happens.
Or that, right? And it's no one's fault. I mean, the bus driver got sick. You certainly don't want them coming to work and driving a bus full of school children while they're sick.
Yeah.
But at the same time, life has to go on with mom and dad, and the family has to function. So, I mean, there are no answers sometimes when you're on the school board. There's always an answer in this job. And sometimes the answer is I'm wrong, and that's fine.
I want to just go back before you wrap up. I know we're on time here, but you said something a little bit earlier about maybe being the assessor that does something else for the first time. I'm not going to ask for specifics, but what is one area of the assessor's office work that you think some really cool technology is coming down the pipe?
So really cool technology is 3D modeling, especially with high resolution aerial imagery. And so there are a couple of companies here in Lafayette Parish that have written software that will take high resolution aerial imagery like you see on our website, and will stitch it together into a 3D model. And the amount of compute power that it requires to stitch those images together. And if you, not to get too dorky about it, but when you
this is the place
when you take those pictures, there has to be a fixed point on the ground that the plane is keeping track of, so that it knows how to stitch the pictures together.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the sheer physics problem that they're solving in taking those pictures is really, really impressive. They're doing that right here in Lafayette.
Yeah.
And it's just a few young kids that graduated from UL a few years ago, and they're whip smart for sure, And so I think there's going to be a lot of that. And I think there's also a real opportunity, clerk's offices in every parish keeps track of who owns which property. That's where the deeds are recorded, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a real opportunity to really clean up property records in such a fashion, because if we can get them all to be purely electronic and track how each parcel of property is split over time, then we can have just a source of truth as to who owns what.
Because it is fascinating. I love looking in the Karen Crow area where you can tell this used to be 20 acres.
Oh, and
now it's
32 people own it.
Exactly. And you start to look at the updated lines. I would love to be able to roll back like you can on Google Earth and say, oh, actually this happened. You want to talk about juice. Well, there was a divorce, and that is, but anyway, I'm making more work for you.
Well, it's like 32 people own it. 32 people own 3%, and we don't know who to send the tax bill to.
Yeah,
because the total tax bill is $40.
Yeah, you guys decide. Pitch in. Justin Centanni, Lafayette Parish Assessor. Thank you so much for
always a pleasure.
Kirkpatrick and Company is brought to you exclusively by Catalyst Bank, where we talk about investing in the community and people who are investing in the community and people who are choosing Acadiana to be. And this was another one of those great conversations. Thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon.
Kirkpatrick and Company is recorded and produced inside the vault at Rock and Bowl in downtown Lafayette. Rock and Bowl is a Louisiana tradition, and their team is ready to host your next event in downtown Lafayette. Contact Robin at 337-534-8880 or visit rockandbowl.com. Rock and Bowl de Lafayette, a proud supporter of Kirkpatrick and Company.